In today's Farm Report, high-speed broadband internet is something many Americans take for granted, but even in 2015, some members of rural America still do not have access to it, and that's why the USDA is working to bring it to those areas. Susan Carter with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
For countless rural residents, high-speed internet access is still non-existent today in 2015. In McCurtain County, Oklahoma, rural development and private partners are investing more than $56 million to make broadband internet access a reality. RD area specialist John Redmond.
Getting to work with the folks that I have has been very meaningful to me because we're getting to deliver services to individuals, families, businesses, schools that haven't had those services before.
For many Americans, high-speed internet is something that is taken for granted. But for thousands of residents living in some parts of rural America, the internet may not even be an option. Ryan McMullen is an RD Oklahoma State Director.
These are absolutely life-changing investments that we're making that will absolutely change the face of Southeast Oklahoma, 2/3 of which had absolutely no internet access whatsoever.
USDA Rural Development is helping fund broadband internet access in rural communities where it's not economically viable for private sector providers to deliver service. Jerry Wisenhunt is with Pine Telephone.
We're a small company with big dreams and shallow pockets, but we really believe in Southeast Oklahoma. USDA believes in rural America.
Through public-private partnerships, RD is providing broadband connectivity that helps businesses and makes rural areas more appealing to newcomers and customers. Michelle Finch owns Girls Gone Wine in Broken Bow, Oklahoma.
Just to be able to do business in this climate these days, having stable internet or broadband is important to our winery. Just for regular everyday business, having broadband and internet services is much bigger than we ever thought.
The projects funded by rural development grants help rural residents tap into the enormous potential of the internet for jobs, education, healthcare, public safety, and community development. For USDA Radio, Susan Carter, Washington, D.C.
Partially hydrogenated oils, or PHOs, are the main source of artificial trans fats in processed foods. On Wednesday, the Food and Drug Administration announcing that food manufacturers have to phase out the use of those PHOs in their processed foods. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers asking Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack if that will cause problems for the food industry or for the soybean industry, which is working to produce replacement oils. He said he has not yet studied the FDA action in detail.
But I did notice that 85% of food processors are already well on their way. There's a 3-year implementation timeline, so I wouldn't anticipate that this is going to create serious and significant problems.
And in fact, as far as the effects on school lunch and breakfast programs,
I'm told that our school meals and snacks are already limited to 0 grams of trans fat, so we're already where we need to be.
Trans fats and partially hydrogenated oils and foods have been linked to cardiovascular disease. FDA says they've got to be gone within 3 years. Experts say in the meantime, if you want to cut intake of these oils, check the food label's ingredient list to see if the food contains them. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
The recent Clinton Global Initiative gave Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack a chance to explain how rural communities can grow and prosper. Rod Bain with the USDA has more.
Unlocking the potential of rural America. That was the focus of a segment within the recent Clinton Global Initiative America Conference in Denver, Colorado, and the subject of a one-on-one discussion between former President Bill Clinton and Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack.
What contributions, which are considerable, the rural part of the country has made to the recovery so far.
During the course of the recession, it was American agriculture that saw record prices, record income, record exports, record job growth, record participation in the economy that helped in many small areas to stem the tide.
Secretary Vilsack said that increasing ag exports, and therefore jobs in rural America, is a main component of the efforts to expand economic opportunity. But more can be and needs to be done. For example,
local and regional food systems, the opportunity to link locally grown produce into a local school creates economic opportunity, creates jobs.
In addition to schools, local and regional government, hospital, and community facilities benefit from locally produced food, which in turn benefits the area's economy.
I was in Milwaukee the other day with Will Allen, Growing Power. He showed me some greens that he was raising for local restaurants and grocery stores. And he said an acre of this sells for $1 million. Every time you create a food hub, it supports 20 jobs. And 20 jobs in a small town is a big deal.
Another rural economic development resource is conservation.
Outdoor recreation is a $640 billion industry. We'd like to see a lot of that spent in rural areas.
And a bio-based economic sector can potentially offer diversification, both on a local and national scale.
The ability to convert and diversify our economy away from its over-reliance on petroleum-based products and chemicals to a place in a day where we basically have bio-based. Virtually everything in this room can be produced from what's grown and raised in rural areas that can bring manufacturing back.
According to the Secretary, that's just one example of using the natural resources of rural America and combining it with innovation to boost rural economic opportunity and prosperity. There is the building of ecosystem markets, such as carbon trading.
The ability to take conservation benefits, be able to measure them, verify them, and then sell them or market them to regulated groups that require that to satisfy some environmental regulation. Hundreds of millions of dollars now being generated as a result of ecosystem markets.
In addition, there is the example of USDA and the Softwood Lumber Council in partnership in an initiative to encourage construction of multi-story buildings, as in 20 to 30-story structures made from wood.
It's a new opportunity for us. It's a new industry that could bring a significant set of benefits to manage their forests properly and to use a natural resource, to create jobs, to bring manufacturing back.
So from the perspective of unlocking the potential of rural America, Secretary Vilsack sums it up this way.
I'm very bullish and very excited about the future of rural America.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
2016 could be the first year since 2008 that U.S. production of every major meat category will have seen an increase from the year before, and in total,
we're definitely looking at an increase for all meat production.
Almost a 2.5% increase. This from Agriculture Department Outlook Board Chairman Seth Meyer. He says 2016 could be the first year since 2010 that beef output will have increased from the previous year. Meyer expecting a 3% rise next year. Pork up 1%, broilers 2%, and even with avian flu effects, turkey output will go up over 7%. Reasons: low feed prices, better forage conditions for cattle, and in general, decent margins for livestock producers.
If you're not being impacted by diseases, you're probably doing pretty well. Of course, you don't want to say everybody's doing well, because certainly if you've got a flock of layers who are infected with HPAI, you're not doing well. But if you've avoided those animal diseases, your returns have been pretty favorable over the last several months.
Encouraging a little more production. In Washington, Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
The nomination process for local Farm Service Agency committee members is ongoing. Rod Bain with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
We've got about 7,800 farmer-elected county committee members around the nation, and these men and women help our county offices around the country with all sorts of different programs, from appeals on farm bill programs that we've rolled out to advice about local agricultural conditions. They're really the eyes and ears in many ways of local county committees.
And USDA Farm Service Agency Administrator Val Docini says that time of year is now upon us, when about a third of those county committee seats come up for election. The county committee nomination period began on June 15th, and the administrator says the nomination process for FSA county committee positions is a straightforward one.
The farmer certainly can nominate him or herself. They can also nominate other local farmers who are of the appropriate voting age and live in the right area. And if you live in an LAA that has an election being held and you're at least 18 years old and you have some level of participation in our programs, then you'd probably be a good candidate for our county committees.
And the election timeline for each FSA local administration area is the same throughout the country, with nominations accepted through April 3rd. And
elections held this fall, and then new county committee members take office on January 1.
Those elected to a county committee position will serve a 3-year term and could serve up to 3 consecutive terms for a total of 9 years.
It's important that we do stagger the terms of our county committee members so that there is a little bit of continuity associated with the work of the committee. And we think, too, that serving a maximum of 9 years is a good period of time. Many farmers enjoy working on the county committee. It keeps them a little bit closer to what FSA is doing in their county, and somebody who's been with us for 6, 7, 8, 9 years is a very valuable resource for that local FSA field office.
Nomination forms and other details about FSA county committee elections can be found either at your Farm Service Agency office or online at www.fsa.usda.gov/elections. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Maybe we are just about at the lowest point we'll see for U.S. beef production. Maybe we are just about at the highest point we'll see for what has been a succession of record high beef cattle prices. That is, if the latest Agriculture Department forecasts pan out for next year. USDA Outlook Board Chairman Seth Meyers pegging 2016 beef production to surpass this year by 3%, the first yearly increase in beef output in 6 years. That may curb what has been the ever-rising prices for beef cattle.
I think that we're finally, after some adjustments in terms of what we see in retentions and herd building and production, we're kind of flattening out.
Steer prices last year were averaging $154.56 a hundredweight. This year it's up to $161.73. But for 2016, a drop in steer prices, not by much, just 23 cents at $161.50.
Still quite a strong price.
If this forecast holds up, it would be the first yearly decline in average steer prices since 2009. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.